So I'll say this: there's about 30% of a good, decent movie in here, which is 25% more than I thought there would be. Before I get my thoughts on this, I guess I kind of gave it away already, but I should probably talk about what I thought of the original M3gan film, the first one that came out. I greatly enjoyed it. I very much think, like I think a lot of people think that I enjoyed it, that it was meant to be campy, it was meant to be hokey, it was meant to be awkward, but it was played straight, and that's what made it work. That's what made it entertaining. It was kind of hard to tell, is this intentional or not, and I think most people know that it was, but they worked with it in a way that didn't wink too hard to the camera. This one, just by the advertising, I think people could figure out if they were going to like it or not, because this one winks super hard to the camera. And I really saw the trailer for this thinking to myself, oh my god, I'm not gonna like this. This is just not gonna be my kind of camp. And I was excited for a M3gan sequel. I do think there's some stuff you could do with it that could be interesting, and they do tap into some of that. The major problem with this film isn't even that it's doing something very different and over the top, because there have been horror sequels that have done that before. Some well, some not. Some somewhere in between, like Gremlins 2 is kind of a satire of the first movie. There's a lot of horror. Look at the Evil Dead movies that just go bigger and sillier, but they still keep to essentially the essence, the core, the center, I don't want to say heart, or heartlessness, if you want, of a lot of these films. In this one, I feel like at times taps into that and does try to push it a little further, but it tries to do way too much, and it gets way too lost in trying to top itself. This is basically like jumping from the first Fast and Furious movie to the ninth. It's just way too big a leap. And I feel like even if you're going to accept that this is just a goofy, campy, over-the-top, bonkers, almost James Bond / kind of Austin Powers style sequel, even by that definition, it kind of loses steam a little bit as it keeps going. But I will say the stuff that I did enjoy about the film, that some of it really surprised me, because I feel like there's a lot of elements in here where if you just took one or two of them, you could have had a decent sequel and it would have been something really different. And it would have evolved the idea. In the opening, not the opening, the first third, I should say, when M3gan reveals herself to still be around, she communicates to our main characters through the house, and it's different appliances in the house. It's the TV, it's the projector, it's the phone. She's kind of walking from thing to thing. It's the cell phone. It's all these different things, and that alone could be an interesting idea. There's a segment early on that's almost like Home Alone a little bit, with people trying to break in, and M3gan as the house uses stuff to thwart them, and I'm thinking, man, if that was used against the main characters, that would actually be kind of creepy. There's another element that you've seen in the trailers of another robot that I thought, oh man, I'm not gonna like that. This isn't gonna be my thing, but a lot of it was surprisingly done well, and I want to give this actress credit. Ivano Sakno, I think is how you say her name. She's so good in this. There were times where I'm looking at the performance saying, were they using CG on her face sometimes? Like, or the movements or anything? And most of it is her, except for the stuff where it's obviously not her climbing on the walls. Obviously not her. But I feel like she did a really good job. She was from I remember praising her before in, was it Ahsoka? She was the apprentice in that too, and she just has a great look. She has these crazy eyes that, again, I'm looking at like, man, did they enhance her eyes at all? And I don't think they did. I think it's just, I think her eyes already look like M3gan's. And she just has this great intense look, but it isn't just the look. It's this wonderful movement of the body that really moves like M3gan does. And like I said, even times where she would just move her head a little bit, or even the way she would talk very precisely with her mouth, it's like I feel like she watched the movie M3gan over and over and tried to really get down not just how like CG tries to replicate some stuff and animatronics and stuff, but also kind of like AI animation and videos. I mean, we're bombarded by this all over the place, and they do tap on that as well. And some things are very interesting in it. Other things I think are very confused. I'll get into that a little bit in a minute, but with that said, without going too much into details, because again, I think you can kind of tell from the trailers, it's M3gan's brought back to hunt this other evil M3gan that's older and stronger, all that stuff. And, it's the Alliance of Convenience. And with that said, they're both obviously operated by AI and programming and stuff like that. And there's an interesting little bit at the end. They don't go too much into it. There's a lot of commentary in this that works better than I think even it realizes. I don't even know if it's trying, because there's a bit at the end during, whatever, the missiles are about to go off or it's about to destroy the world, because, of course, that's the direction that this over-the-top sequel would go. The world's going to be destroyed. But it's AI arguing with AI. And I feel like AI is the new boogeyman in movies right now. And understandably so, and you could argue rightfully so. Like, these are very important things we need to talk about. But I don't know if I've seen that too much in movies. I mean, maybe I have, but now that's becoming more and more relevant and just all over the place, and we need to be having more conversations about it, and, hopefully we are, and hopefully we'll start doing stuff about it too, is that it's interesting seeing AI argue with AI, one arguing for humanity, one arguing against, and yeah, that sounds kind of stereotypical and everything, but in a movie like this, you can kind of get away with that, and I don't know, it's something I haven't seen yet. Now that we do have these things where, like, people are falling in love with AI, and you're having AI characters all over the place and stuff like that, it's interesting seeing two AI personalities argue about this. And I wanted more stuff like that. I even wanted more of this other robot lady, because again, she moved great. She had a good setup. Again, without even, I think, being intentional about it, there's a scene where she has to sneak into a party and she has to seduce this billionaire who it's like a mix between Elon Musk and an evil Charles Xavier. I guess I was hoping they were going to do more with him, but they don't. And as soon as he's out of the picture, it's pretty easy to figure out who the real mastermind behind everything is. But that's, other issues with the movie. But the way they have her made up, because they make her look a little plasticky. Again, she's supposed to kind of look like, M3gan a little bit, but she's supposed to be a natural player, like she's more evolved than M3gan. So you have kind of this mostly human, but a little artificial, a little plasticky, like especially on the forehead and the makeup and stuff like that, and the way she moves. And I thought, again, you could get across great commentary about just how artificial people sometimes are. Not just in how they look and how many things they'll have surgery done, everything, but even the guy in this, who's kind of the Elon Musk parody, he's in a wheelchair, but he's really big on getting these artificial machines that are, tap into your brain, and you can move your arm and your legs and stuff like that, and he's to a point where he has, like, computers in his brain, so, like, he'll take a phone call, go like this, and look over data while just going like this, scroll, it's going, no, I don't like that, here, I'll send you a picture, there you go. And I like that scene because you don't see what he sees. And that's a good way to save money, but it's also very clever. You just have to imagine it. And little touches like that. And I feel like whenever this film is trying to be a horror film, it usually works and it's effective. But it's also funny. There is a moment where where M3gan does make another body for herself, but it's not the one you see in the trailers, whatever, where it's basically like the old one. She makes one from just stuff she can find, and it looks like a Chuck E. Cheese animatronic if you took the face off, like everything under it, and it's horrifying, but it's also really funny, and there's a couple scenes with it where the M3gan is trying to talk, to the kid again, but she looks like this horrible, horrifying thing, and they're trying to have an emotional moment, and they're talking about stuff that actually is interesting, and they are talking about their feelings a little bit, and I'm watching this like, man, I am sucked into what they're talking about, but I am also horrified looking at this, and just delighted at how funny this looks, and just what a fun time I'm having with this mixture of strange emotions. Like, that was the strength of the first movie, and I feel like anytime it taps into that, it's really onto something, but most of the time, it's just doing like I said, James Bond, Austin Powers, man, I don't know. A lot of it looks like imagery you see from like a Japanese technology convention or something with people coming out in these robotic outfits. She does a dance. Let me put it this way. There's a line where Megan's dressed up like one of these dancers. I wonder what she's going to do. And in the middle of this convention, you know, the lights are shining on the dancers and it's about to shine on her. And, you know, what's her name? Allison, I'm blanking on her name. I don't know. I can't find it now. Nope, you know what? I'm going to get it because that's a pretty famous name. Allison Williams, there you go. Where Allison Williams says to Megan, get down! And then the spotlight shines on her and the kid is like, well, you told her to get down! And of course she does a stupid dance and it's like, oh. That is just not the camp I'm looking for, and there is a lot of that. There's a lot more intentional comedy, you know, the little sidekicks, the side scientists that were, again, kind of comic relief in the first one. You could tell they were supposed to die, but then they kept them alive because they're like, oh, I don't know, we got a PG-13 this at the last minute. That was one of the things I did not like about the first one. They're in it a lot more. They're not that funny. There's a lot of moments you can tell they're just going hardcore for the camp. And maybe that'll do it for you. I feel like the fun camp that was enjoyable in the first film and where it could have topped itself is like the stuff I was saying before, where maybe she does take over the house. Maybe there is another android and she has to figure stuff out with her. Again, just that makeshift body that she put together trying to have a serious heart-to-heart with the kid. That's where the strength of the film should have been. And then, again, maybe by movie 9, like Fast 9, that's where you do this crazy stuff, where you have them like, looking like a flying squirrel through the mountains and stuff and like that, like just that's where you do all that craziness, because I get it. That's certainly something horror films do. And, especially ones where a character, where it's based on a famous killer, like Freddy or Jason, his fictional movie monster. And they just get crazier and crazier. And I get that. Going just to that in the second one, and the fact that it's not really focused as much on horror. I mean, again, I say about 20% of it, 25 I'm being lenient, is dedicated to horror, where the first one, the majority easily was dedicated to horror. And there's just so many scenes where they might have a moment that works okay, and then they just keep going with it. Like, again, Allison Williams is having a talk with Megan, like a little heart-to-heart. And then at the end of the scene, Megan starts to sing, like how she sung to the kid in the first film. And I did start to laugh because I'm like, wow, I thought the scene was trying to take itself seriously, and then it does something really odd like that. But, okay, you know where it's supposed to go. She's supposed to go, all right, stop, okay, like, we're done, something like that. But she gets through, like, half the song. And it just loses steam by that point. And to Williams' credit, she is trying hard to give these reactions like, this is so stupid. Like, even she half the time just has to look like, what the hell am I doing in this movie? What is everybody even saying? Half this dialogue is technobabble exposition that just goes on for so long, I forget what people are supposed to do by the end. I know there's something about a mechanical MacGuffin that's going to destroy the world, but somebody gives a look to somebody like, haha, we have the secret thing that's going to save the day. And I'm like, what was that again? I don't even remember. And it wasn't until like after the thing happened that I'm like, oh, okay. Wasn't something said about that like 45 minutes ago or something like that? I don't know. And I just didn't care. And I think especially in the last third where you're supposed to embrace, it's supposed to get bigger and crazier, and the last third is surprisingly very boring. Like I said, it's mostly in this James Bond villain lair where there's all sorts of evil technology everywhere and the evil mastermind is making a big evil speech and everything. And I'm just watching it thinking to myself, boy, this isn't fun. And whenever it's trying to do its commentary on AI, it's not really until the very end that they spell out, literally spell out what they're trying to say about it. But a part of me was going, man, if that speech wasn't there, I wouldn't exactly know where their stance was on AI, because there's definitely stuff that looks like, it's very I mean, it's M3gan. Of course there's going to be stuff that's very anti-AI, but then there's stuff where it seems like very pro on the other hand, and even like a lot of the villains in this are very anti-AI, and I'm kind of well, what exactly are they trying to do with this? And again, I guess where you see where it all kind of goes, there's something that I guess the message will be gotten across enough, but it's also M3gan, where she does a little dance in a space outfit, and she has a little gun like she's in laser tag, and how seriously am I going to take that? So it is something, even if they want to do something that kind of mixed the idea of, there's pros and cons of AI, and I guess I should talk a little bit about that. I think like a lot of people, I am deathly afraid of AI. I think too much has gotten out of, the bag, and we've let too much out of the box, and it's going to be hard to scale it back, and we should start making, some legislation about it and stuff like that. But, I said before, there's 30% of a good movie in here. I think there's about 30% of good stuff we can get out of AI, like right now, and stuff that's ethical. Now, that's not much, but because there's so many other things to be afraid of, to be, rightfully afraid of, it's like, I do like pointing out the few things that are like, okay, like this is a good thing. This is an ethical thing. But you also know where a lot of people lie on this. I did a video a long time ago where I was saying, not for distributing, not for selling, not for anything else, when I have the fatigue really bad at the beginning of the chronic fatigue, typing in my emotions into this AI art generator kind of helped. Visually seeing my emotions reflect back to me in different styles actually kind of helped me get out of my fog sometimes, or help relax me. But it wasn't something that I would go and make money on, because I know what it does. It goes and takes from other artists, and like, that's not cool. I don't think you should make money on that. But if it's something where it's only helping you, I didn't see it as a bad thing. And it's something where I'm like, let this out, see. Maybe some people will see the same. And all the comments were filled with people saying, boy, it was one of two things being said. Either, boy, that's a good point. He did bring up the dangers and the things that are not good about AI, but here's actually something that could be good about, could be beneficial. And the other half was saying, boy, wait till Twitter gets a load of this. And they did, because they downvoted like mad. And you could tell they didn't even watch the video, because overwhelmingly the majority of it, I agree with the dangers of AI big time. But that shows you what a hot button topic it is. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because with this movie, they are trying to talk about this stuff more. And at the end, at least, they're trying to be very, very direct. But again, it's M3gan. It's a silly, goofy movie where she's driving a hot rod car and stuff like that. And B, you're again kind of confusing it with an idea that, the villains are very anti-AI, and I guess in a very loose way they're showing the benefits of it when you look at, like some of the things that M3gan does and the other robot does, but then you see the bad things they do too. So I feel like it's very muddied, and I just don't feel like this is a movie to really do that straightforward a commentary. You should have more fun with the commentary and do more goofy stuff in terms of the emotions of the characters and the motivations and everything, instead of, like I said, having them skydive, on top of a mountain and everything. Two other things I want to bring up real fast that I almost forgot about. I like that M3gan, as soon as she comes back, Liam says, what do you want? And she says, well, unlike you, I don't have free will. So I am only doing what I'm programmed to do, which is to protect the kid. She's obsessed with the kid. There's a scene where you see a painting of that she did of her with the kid, and she's like, she kind of looks like the parent, like she's a lot bigger than the kid. She has like her hand, while the kid is sitting down, she has like her hand on her shoulder, and it's so funny. So I like that, though it does make you wonder if Williams can put in all these fail-safes of, stopping her from hurting people and, stopping her from swearing, why can't she just program her to not be obsessed with her kid? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But again, for a film like this, it's not necessarily an issue because it's supposed to be over the top and silly. And then there's another one other little bit I wanted to say that was like something out of a horror film, which, well, it is a horror film, supposed to be, where they have these, I want to say artificial limbs, but they're like, I don't know, they're like gloves with wires that hook up to different parts of your body, and I think also your legs as well, and your arms, and they make you super strong. Well, I wonder what they're going to do with this. You know, obviously it's going to play a part in the climax here. And there is a funny bit where somebody uses them while passed out. Somebody else is programming them to beat people while they're passed out. That's kind of funny. But there's a good creepy scene where somebody uses it to try and kill someone in the first half. And it's a very simple effect. And it's not even on screen for long, but I was like, that was kind of creepy. That was a pretty chilling moment. When this movie does want to be creepy, it can still get there, and it can be funny at the same time. The image of this thing trying to kill someone, just these artificial limbs, you know, it is disturbing because they shoot in a very quiet manner, but it's also hilarious. It's also really, really funny. So I do feel bad that there is a potentially good movie in here that's trying to get out, but I think it just got... I think instead of trying to make the movie maybe the sequel to M3gan should be, it's trying to make the movie that fans and people that left funny comments and stuff like that online, like what the filmmakers thought they wanted to see, just go crazier and goofier, have her dance more, and explosions and stuff like that, hot rod cars, and, you know, silly FBI agents who don't know what they're doing, a lot of more silly, funny one-liners and everything, and it's definitely not for me, and I don't know how many people who really want to give themselves to the campiness of it are going to get quite what they're looking for, because there are moments where it can lean hard into it and it can kind of be fun. There's, like I said, when she gets dressed up in the silly dancing girl outfit, you know, and does the dance, that's kind of dumb, but all right. Again, I could almost see that a little bit in a M3gan sequel, but then there's a scene where she's chasing the other robot, and the robot is literally disguised as a robot, which is pretty funny. She is, you know, because she looks human, but then she has to wear robot disguise on top of that. Like, that's really clever. That's really, really smart. And then they go into this room, because again, this is some sort of AI convention, which I don't know if that's a thing. It will be, if not now, maybe several years from now. And, you know, so a lot of people are dressed like these neon robots and everything. And she goes into this room where these lights are flashing and they're just looking at each other. It looks like a bizarre, surreal version of like laser tag as they're having this conversation. And the robot outfit that the other robot has on, the mask, the face is covered and reflects back M3gan in this hallway of lights just in the face, and it looks cool. There's a lot of imagery like that, and even she in that outfit looks like something out of Metropolis, and you know they take a lot of ideas and imagery certainly from other films that have dabbled with ideas like this and give it their own fun spin, and that stuff sometimes really works. Like I said, that whole scene where they're talking to each other, just looking at it is really, really cool. But like I said, if you're looking for a lot of that, there's not a ton, and I think that is the biggest problem with the movie. It really is trying to do too much, and it is definitely leaning harder into being really silly, really campy. Like I said, the last third is pretty much a James Bond movie, but I feel like when you're mixing that with the weird laser tag scene we just saw, then driving in the hot, cool car, then it's a horror movie for a bit, then it's a Home Alone movie, and it just jumps around way too much, you're gonna get, you know, tonal whiplash after a while, and not in a fun way. There are some movies that can do it. The Spider-Verse movies are some films I point to that just do it brilliantly, magnificently, but there's not many. It's very tricky to do, and I don't think this film pulls it off. So, yeah, I can also say, too, that not all of, but a lot of the acting doesn't quite work in it either. I made the argument that in the first film, Allison Williams should be a little flat, like she doesn't know how to raise a kid necessarily. She doesn't interact with people that much, so she should be a little off. I remember the kid being okay in the first movie. She's really pretty lifeless in this, and everything just sounds like she's trying to remember her lines. And to be fair, by God, everyone's just given a mouthful of technobabble exposition in this, to a point where, like I said, I just stopped following it. I'm just like, okay, well, I mean, you've made it clear plot doesn't matter at at all in this. So I just checked out whenever they do that. I'm like, why even explain? Just say she has wings now, rather than give her a suit to fly through the mountains. Just say she can now grow wings. I'll believe it at this point because it's going over the top. It's over the top crazy. So yeah, it doesn't work, but I guess I want to acknowledge it a little bit as instead of it gets what it deserves because, these stupid sequels go in these stupid directions. I want to acknowledge a little bit more. It's a little bit of a tragedy because I do see potential for not just a good M3gan sequel, but like a couple good M3gan sequels that you could do with this. I think you just had to pick one, two at the most. You either had to make it about her trying to find this other robot or her taking over the house and making another body, for herself. A part of me does respect that isn't just doing the exact same thing again. And I do also give credit that a lot of films are trying to not do that. I mean, yes, in a time of sequels and remakes and stuff like that. Maybe that's part of the reason why. You'll get something like How to Train Your Dragon or Lion King, which is literally a shot-for-shot remake, but everybody kind of makes fun of them. They'll do well, but everybody makes fun of them. So you will have these sequels that'll suddenly try to go in a different direction or do something kind of crazy so that people look at it and go, what the hell? I remember that. It's doing that. I got to see that movie to see how insane it gets. And I do respect that more than somebody just trying the same thing again. I hate hearing here we go again, or don't you remember last time? Or, I hate those kind of sequels, but it just doesn't quite click. It really is trying to do way too much. And it didn't work for me. I guess out of 4 stars, I'll give it 2. In the first half, I was maybe leaning towards 2.5. Part of this I'm almost close to recommending. But man, when it just got to that last third, it is so boring. And there are so many jokes that do not work and are so cringy and annoying. And just, there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't land. With that said, what are your thoughts? Did you see this movie and you're like, nah, man, it was great that it went totally over the top and something different and crazier and campier and just leaned into how insane it was. I love that this is just totally bonkers. Or do you think it's just the worst horror sequel you've ever seen? Like the fact that it does just betray so much of what the first film was trying to do in terms of keeping it a horror film and just leaned too hard into the crazy kitschiness of it? Or are you somewhere in between where you're like, you know what? It's a pretty creepy looking effect, whether it's supposed to look like it's really there or not, and it gets some laughs out of me and it makes me a little uncomfortable, and that's what I'm looking for. Let me know your thoughts and I'll see you next time. Take care.